Okay, let's talk about Wakanda Forever. So I just watched this movie yesterday and decided, you know what, let's just give it a day or two to marinate. A lot of people are posting super early spoiler reviews, and since I only do spoiler reviews, I decided, you know what, let's just give it a few more days. And so here I am. It's less than a week though, but I don't think I need to delay this any further, considering just how many people are really out there just dumping spoiler reviews all over the internet, including screenshots that they really should not. Like I get it, you want to talk about something that's spoiler, sure, include it in your video, but I see like some people's what do you call that? Thumbnails are already spoilers. I think it's a bit too much, guys. Like tone it down a little bit, take it back a notch. But sure, whatever. Wakanda Forever. So here's the. I want to be very objective with the way I review this first, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritty parts. So overall, it's a decent film. It's not a good movie. It's not a bad movie. It's pretty average in my opinion. And then there are good points, there are bad points, and yeah, we'll go through those in a bit. As for the music, the score, there's nothing too impressive. I think generally in Marvel movies, there's not like a score where it's not like some Christopher Nolan score that happens in Interstellar or the Batman trilogy or BBS or Man of Steel. It's not like one of those scores where you can just go back to and listen into and dive really deep. I think besides the original Avengers score, which is great for an Avengers film, a lot of the other scores in general across the movies have not been that great. I think the first Black Panther film actually had some decent scores, and you see some of those reflected in this film, especially during certain opening sequences, during the introduction of Wakanda, and also as they like right after introduction, during introduction, there's like some African singing, calling us into the lands of Wakanda sort of thing, and then once we're actually in the city, you can hear some of those classic tunes of being a part of Wakanda. But a lot of the other music I felt was very flat. There's not really any action sequences where there's this theme that you get hooked onto and like, yeah, bring it on, Shuri, or bring it on, to whoever the superhero is in this case. It's pretty much just Shuri. Honestly, Shuri is the new Black Panther, and we also have Riri Williams, who's very much a side character in this. She doesn't really do anything in the story. She's like I don't really know what her purpose is. She's just there. But so let's just focus on Shuri, who's the new Black Panther. There's not really a theme for her that where you're like when you hear it like yeah go Shuri go superhero. No, there's none of that stuff. And then even for the supervillain in this story, who's Namor, who they pronounce as in Namor, because he's like changed from an Atlantean to some kind of Aztec South American deity. I believe they're facing some right issues, which is the reason why they did this. So this is not really Namor. This is like Namor. It's something else. It's basically like a discount Namor because they couldn't really get the rights to the full Namor character. And also, they couldn't really overcome what was already done in DC's Aquaman, which where the world building is so much better, so much more superb. You see an entire society, that's having these games and this sport and this realm where the ships are moving through, portals and undersea currents, and they're traveling from city to city. Whereas for this Namor guy, it's just very, very flat-looking city, very generic CGI-looking city. And then the only cool part I felt in the city was when he shows the this sun-ish like vibranium technology that he's holding. And that scene was kind of cool, but other than that, they didn't really go too deep into why it can do that or what exactly kind of technology is it like some kind of a mini arc reactor tech, equal to an arc reactor tech but made of vibranium or something. So they didn't really go into those specifics. They kept very surface level when it came to the tech stuff, just saying that I can do everything because the script says I can, not really how or why. There's only one part that really went into the why, but it ended up becoming really corny, and that's the part where Shuri was trying to replicate, the recreation of the herb, which gives the Black Panther his powers or her powers, and so the heart-shaped herb basically were extinct after the end of Black Panther's film because Killmonger had destroyed all of them. Whereas in this film, Shuri apparently has been trying to replicate the herb, trying to help her brother, the original Black Panther, T'Challa, whose death apparently is one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in film history. So she tries to replicate that, and so there's some science involving that where she actually works to derive his DNA to match with the vibranium tech DNA because apparently the heart-shaped herb grows from vibranium-rich soil. So by finding the references between his DNA and the vibranium-rich soil, and this new bracelet that Namor gives her, which allows her to actually derive even more of the DNA she needs. Apparently, somehow the villain gives her the key to the whole puzzle, right? And she solves it. And so then she doesn't only solve how the heart-shaped herb is created, she actually 3D prints the heart-shaped herb. And this technology is never referenced again throughout the entire film, but she basically 3D printed a plant to life because the heart-shaped herb comes to life. It starts glowing once it's completed printing, and they say, "How do you know it works?" And they say, "We'll know it works if it glows," and it actually glowed. And I was shocked to death because that means they could bring what if they 3D print Tony Stark back to life? What's preventing them from doing that? Because ideally they could just 3D print him, and how do you know he works? He's gonna breathe, and there we go. Oh, he breathes. Tony Stark has been 3D printed back to life, and that's the kind of technology that Shuri has been working with. It's absolute bullshit. As for the sci-fi part of the entire film, it's just 0 out of 10. Is what I can give them. So yeah, music was that. Nothing too catchy. Visuals, CGI was actually quite bad. A lot of the parts you can see a lot of the outlines of the CGI, the gritty, details are not very cleared. A lot of the scenes are kind of stupid, not really well thought of. There's not really any cool action sequence where you say, "Oh, that's really cool. I'm going to remember that." It's not like the ones where you see in Top Gun Maverick where you want to go back and watch it again, or in BVS where you want to go and see Batman jumping even for his life, just running away from Doomsday was already such a cool scene. So yeah, there's none of those cool little stuff in this movie. It's very very flat, very generic CGI fights. Even Black Panther's final fight was pretty generic in terms of CGI, but the first Black Panther film did have some other cooler moments, especially I think when Killmonger is hunting for yeah, I think when Killmonger is actually hunting for T'Challa or something. Oh, who was he hunting for? He's actually hunting for someone. Can't really remember that scene, but yeah, it's from the first film. I felt some of those scenes were actually done better. Here, it's not very polished, and also the CGI and technology just seems quite unbound. There's no real reality to tie them to the limits of what technology can do. And there's no real explanation given to a lot of things as well. So everything is gone full sci-fi, and there's not enough science to help the fiction feel realistic. And what I mean by that is when you watch the first Iron Man film with Tony Stark in it, he actually builds the suit from a bunch of scraps in a cave, right? And when he comes out of the cave, it's believable looking at him that he was able to build that. It's believable. Like even though it's ridiculous for someone, an ordinary person to do that, you do believe that someone who has the intelligence of 10 geniuses or whatever, a super genius ideally, would be able to achieve that. It's doable, right? Looking at it. And eventually, when he builds the first Iron Man armor, it's also believable that he came to that technology based on the resources he has that we have seen him use, and even then, it wasn't that easy. And over time, sure, we get thrown into the tropes of nanotechnology just so that they can make a lot of the visuals a lot easier for them, all the way in Avengers Infinity War. But you can see how he takes time to grow with his technology. Whereas for Shuri's case, we already see her introducing nanotechnology in the first Black Panther film, and in this one, she's already 3D printing plants to life. So if she's really 3D able to 3D print things to life, she could 3D print Thanos, she could 3D print Captain Marvels and keep an army of them. She could 3D print the Infinity Stones, which is likely what they're doing in the next Loki season. So it's becoming more and more ridiculous and more disjointed from reality and less likable, very cheesy and corny. If there's any other vocabs that I probably need to describe this, I will have to learn them up. So that's the way the movie feels in general. As for the actors themselves, I think Letitia Wright is a decent actress in my opinion. She's doing her best, right? She that's the script given to her and she's working her best through it. Danai Gurira is also pretty good. Lupita Nyong'o is already an excellent and established actress. She's great. I felt Winston Duke as M'Baku was one of the most charismatic people in this entire film. The most charismatic, I dare say. He's so good to see on screen. His jokes always land. The way he delivers them, his micro expressions, his body expressions, his movement and his body language. It's just so nice to have him be there. And whether he's joking or whether he's serious, he's believable. And you can tell that he's just this guy who is trying to fulfill his role in this place. And he's doing it so well, embodying that figure. And he's even wise. He actually gives some words of wisdom to Shuri, who's ideally the princess of Wakanda, who's a super genius. And apparently, she needs words of wisdom all of a sudden, but she can figure everything else out. It's very strange considering we get it, the whole grief part, and they could have doubled down on the grief because when she does consume the heart shaped herb to become the Black Panther, she actually sees Killmonger in the astral plane instead of her brother or her mother, who she expects to see. And so that's interesting that they introduced Killmonger because her path of becoming the Black Panther is similar to Killmonger. It's more of her path of revenge. So I thought they might double down on it and show that Shuri becomes actually the villain, and Namor is sort of like actually the hero in this. They flip the tables. That might have been super cool and very comic-like because they've done that in a lot of comics. Maybe not specifically Marvel comics, but actually Marvel comics too. Yeah, I've seen that. Like even when Doc Ock takes over Spider-Man's body, you kind of expect him to just ruin things, but he turns out to become the hero. So that twist could have been really cool, but they didn't really do too much into that. Martin Freeman's Everett Ross was useless. If you delete him from the story, nothing changes. Riri Williams was also useless. If you delete her from the story, nothing changes. Florence Kasumba, Michaela Cole, I think they're just there to give, um, to buff up the, what do you call them? The god, right? The king's god or whatever. There's a name for them. I keep forgetting that. But it's basically what Okoye commands. So yeah, those are those actresses, and they just did a very flat job. But other than that, one very strange thing about the way Wakanda looks is that in the first film, you see a lot of the men and women and how they both partake when it comes to war. Even in Infinity War, you see a lot of men and women stand side by side to challenge Thanos' army. And in Endgame, you actually see a lot of men and women come together to, fend off against Thanos' army, to contribute as Wakanda and what's not. But in this film, for some reason, there are no men in the city, and the funniest thing about the entire movie, the stupidest and funniest thing, is that every time the Namor's, Atlantean people come, not Atlantean, Aztec people come to attack, they use this underwater song, like some kind of sirens song, which lulls the men to jump off ships. This is like a tale as old as time, right? So they use this kind of siren song to lull people off the ships, and the queen is like it's not specific to men. Apparently, it works on everyone. Because whenever that happens, there's always someone to tell someone else, put on your earplugs, and then the other person's like, sure, and then they put on these earplugs. It's really funny to me how everyone has a earplug wherever they're walking, and these people are like, oh, it's a siren song, it's some kind of supersonic attack. Put on your earplugs. Sure, I got my earplugs right here, and then they put it on right away. It's just so corny. It's just so corny and stupid, and it's hilarious. Like it makes the whole movie feel even more of a parody than it already is. Like Neymar already feels like a parody the moment he's introduced, but it gets worse, right? But overall, as time went on, I actually started liking this new Namor character. He started to get a bit more interesting in the way he delivers his lines. He's sort of like he's not a very serious guy. He's generally joking, maybe joking, but then again, you kind of feel that he's evil deep down. And yeah, sure, he can be a funny villain in the way he delivers his joke, and I thought that was pretty cool. Instead of making fun of him, like what they do to Thor, right? Make him deliver the jokes, that will still be pretty decent. So I thought Namor was interesting to that point. But then it gets even more corny, right? So in terms of how the story goes is uh, Black Panther's dead. The original T'Challa is dead. And they only explain that he dies of a mysterious disease. They don't explain what it is. They don't explain why his Black Panther powers were not able to save him. And all of a sudden, Shuri has apparently been working on a new heart-shaped herb to try to save him because he's been losing his powers. Why that happened, how that happened, no context given. Totally dies off screen. I feel it's complete injustice to the character of T'Challa that they built up in the first film, especially considering the fact that he has always been this rough and tough kind of guy. Sure, he's an intelligent person. He's also a great engineer, but he, down to his core, he's actually a king who has won by a trial of combat, right? Because Wakanda actually relies on the strongest person to lead them, physically the strongest person, the most capable fighter. Sure, they need to be intelligent to some extent, but your intelligence can only get you so far when it's hand-to-hand combat, right? You're still gonna lose to the strongest person in the room. And so T'Challa is technically that kind of leader. Shuri is not. Shuri did not win the trial by combat to become the next king or whatever. She just takes over the mantle of Black Panther by consuming the herb for no reason other than revenge. There's no other context given. There's no meeting with the tribes to say that she's going to do it, to consult them to say that she's going to become the next queen of Wakanda. There's really, because if you think about it, she's not the rightful queen of Wakanda because Wakanda is decided by trial of combat. So in the first Black Panther, T'Challa technically lost to Killmonger, so Killmonger should have been king, rightfully so. Even though in this film they keep bringing up the fact that the like Okoye and her troop actually betrayed the queen by supporting Killmonger, some outsider, but they allowed the trial to take place. They allowed Killmonger, the outsider, who's supposed to be originally Wakandan, who comes back into their world, who they know is a mercenary, to participate in trial and defeat T'Challa fair and square. So it's really strange that they, first of all, disapprove of him, and in this one, all of a sudden they don't care about the ritual altogether. Shuri just becomes the next, Black Panther just by deciding by herself. And so Shuri takes that responsibility when her mother also dies in this film. So Angela Bassett actually had some of the best, most emotionally driven scenes and very well delivered, I dare say, because she's a very good actress, I think, just naturally, right? So Queen Ramonda is there in the UN conference doing this very cheesy thing where apparently there are people in the conference. They're telling her like, we want to know why you didn't really share your resources with us, why you haven't got to us about the your technology of vibranium, blah blah. And then she's like, no, 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 only Wakanda is allowed to have vibranium. And by the way, I actually caught some mercenaries who try to steal vibranium for our ships, and then they bring these mercenaries. They make them kneel them in front of her, like kneel in front of her in the Wakandan conference. Um, I don't know. It's strange. Like, do they all of a sudden kneel before the king or something? Because I don't know. It's like Black Panther said in Infinity War. No, they don't do that here when they try to bow. But now the queen wants people to kneel instead. So what is Wakandan culture is becoming more and more of a mystery to me. Do they kneel? Do they bow? Do they just stand there? Like, I don't know. It's really strange. Like where their emphasis is on the points they're trying to make. Regardless, Queen Ramonda. You know, like their daughters. This is a very messed up plot, after that. So after the UN conference where people are just trying to steal vibranium, they're showing that the Earth is, I mean, the other countries are putting pressure on Wakanda. All of a sudden, Namor shows up in Wakanda, swims past their barriers somehow. Apparently, they can't reinforce any of the barriers. All of a sudden, they are like a nation that's surrounded by water. I don't know where all this water came from, but all of a sudden, they have water everywhere. And so I understand they're beside the river, but seems like they're almost surrounded by water from most of the scenes, and they have a lot of water flowing in when the Namor people attack. So from there, from the UN conference, they actually go to the parts where Namor tells her like, you need to keep my nation secret, and you need to deliver to us this engineer who built this vibranium detection device, and they detected vibranium in our kingdom. And Queen Ramonda says that no, only Wakanda has vibranium. But Namor says that no, my kingdom also has vibranium, and is apparently wearing vibranium necklaces, vibranium jewelry. So it looks like the Atlanteans and the Wakandans both use vibranium tech now. So once she finds that out, Namor says, you need to keep our nation secret, and you also need to help us find the engineer that built this machine. And the engineer is Riri Williams. So Shuri goes and she wants to find Riri Williams. Okoye takes her together. Turns out Okoye fails at a job. Shuri and Riri get kidnapped by the uh, the Namorians or whatever. There's actually a name for their tribe, some tribe. What are they called? Yeah, I'm not sure what it actually means. Um, okay, anyway, yeah, so they kidnap these two girls. They don't do anything to them. They just basically just let them chill there, while Namor takes Shuri even deeper into the ocean to show his actual city. So he takes her wearing this very high powered, like very powerful suit that can resist the pressure of the ocean, takes her all the way down, shows his city, and that was actually a good part of the story where they're trying to world build on the Atlantean city, so called, that Namor takes her to. And then he shows her the city. It's pretty cool. They have a glowing kind of sun-like orb thing, which apparently is done with the technology of the magic metal that landed from space. So there could have been more than one asteroid, which is the theory they come up with, because they know that vibranium is not from the Earth. So must have been maybe more than one asteroid that crash landed. One was in Wakanda, the other one was under the ocean, and that created the city of where Namor comes from. So yeah, all this happens, and then Shuri and Riri Williams are left at the like bunker that's closer to the surface, and So Okoye fails at a job, she gets fired, and then they go and the queen Ramonda actually goes and approaches Nakia and asks Nakia for help instead. Nakia actually finds out where these two girls are, brings them back, and the more and before she brings them back, she actually kills the two kind of handmaidens who are keeping an eye on the two girls. And so Shuri actually tries to help the handmaidens, saying that if you don't help them, it's going to cause war. Nakia says we don't have time, so they leave. And Namor arrives to find the handmaidens dead and realizes that it is war, and so Namor declares war on Wakanda. And even then, there were some strange scenes where when they come to kidnap the girls, like the Atlanteans wanted to keep their identity completely a secret. They don't ever wanted to come to the surface world. They wanted Wakanda to be the one to bring the Riri Williams to them. But all of a sudden, they jump on this bridge to try to cut off Riri Williams from Okoye and kidnap her instead for themselves. So it's very strange that, like, first of all, they asked the help of Queen Ramonda to say that we want you to bring Riri Williams, but just because of discussion they have where we don't want you to kill Riri Williams, all of a sudden they send troops to to show themselves on the bridge where there's like this entire police squad behind them. Uh, so the recordings of the Atlanteans would have already reached the whole world, right? Because most of the police officers would have been wearing the recording cameras on their uniforms. So technically, Atlanteans just expose themselves to the entire world voluntarily. Like, it's not even something that the Wakandans had to reveal. Like, Atlanteans just jumped on a bridge, fought a bunch of police officers, killed them, in fact, kidnapped Riri and Shuri, and then left. And so this thing's also covered by the media in very stupid fashion. They show the TV running in the background every now and then, a few scenes, and somehow the world is not really sure what's happening. They don't really have the full info. When at the end of the day, the videotapes would have already been on the cops' uniforms and would have gone straight to their police feed. So it's really, really strange, some of these parts. So yeah, anyway, war is declared between the two nations. They prepare for war. And Wakanda is taken, like, it's actually attacked unexpectedly. Somehow, despite Wakanda saying to strengthen their borders, the Atlantean people managed to sneak into Wakanda through their waters. So how they do it, like Wakanda says, like we are strengthening our shields to prevent these water people from coming in. And then the next scene, the water people come in. So how they come in and why the shields didn't work is not explained. The only thing we get to know about the shields is that apparently these two guys have to drum these two unique drums to open the shields. That's the only thing we learn about the shields this whole film. But other than that, how come these Atlanteans managed to slip past the shields is completely I don't know. Like no one knows. It's not explained in the film. So they sneak in, they attack a bunch of people. There's no men in Wakanda. The only ones who are fighting are the. Ah, right, now I know the name. Dora Milaje, right? Dora Milaje are the only ones who can defend. And they obviously, the queen says, wear your earplugs. And they say, sure, ma'am. And they pull out these two magical earplugs from their pockets and they plug them into their ears. So they try to defend the kingdom. Complete failure. The rest of Wakanda, apparently, a nation that has fought off Thanos' army twice, uh, couldn't fight off a bunch of Atlanteans all of a sudden in their own kingdom. And so a bunch of bombs is delivered by Namor onto the this kind of dome, a glass dome, which is where the Queen Ramonda is sitting, and the dome explodes, and Queen Ramonda actually drowns, from the water explosion, and so that's when Shuri goes into the path of revenge. So I don't know. I mean, at this point, the movie is already as stupid as it could be, and I thought they can't really push it any further, but they do. So I did like the part where Shuri actually sees Killmonger instead of her brother or her mother, which is what she was expecting. And so when Killmonger shows up, he's like, "Hey, yo, cousin, you wanted some revenge. Come down my path." And she's like, "No, no, no, I'm not like you." But she does the exact same thing. She takes the power for revenge, and she goes after Namor. And so here's another cool little thing. Everyone else besides Namor calls him Namor. Everyone besides Namor and his people call him Namor. Namor and his people call him Namor. Everyone else calls him Namor. So does that mean Namor is the American pronunciation that they're trying to convey? And if it is American pronunciation, why are the Wakandan Africans all of a sudden having an American accent when calling Namor Namor? Uh, like, like, wait, I got something for that. This one. All of a sudden, Africans have American accents when calling Namor Namor. I don't know. It's so strange. But yeah, it is what it is. A very strange and stupid movie. So from then on, there's like this, epic final CGI fight that's not even done properly. You can see a lot of the flaws in the CGI. So some interesting stuff does take place. Shuri and Riri work together to build a ship that apparently will act as some kind of a prison for Namor. It is going to weaken him by burning his skin because they find out that he draws energy from the water, and so if they dry his skin up, he won't be as strong. And so they weaken him by drying him up, but he's still strong enough to fight his way out of the ship. But before he could get out of the ship, Shuri crashes the ship into this desert island. So he's still weakened and is fighting the Black Panther. Shuri, excuse me, and Shuri is able to take his attacks for the most of the part, but Namor actually managed to stab her through the stomach with a spear. She doesn't die, and he tries to reach the ocean, but before that, she comes back towards him, beats him up, and puts him on the ground and holds the spear against him BVS style. But before she kills him, her mother comes to her, just like in Batman v Superman, when Superman utters Martha, Batman's mother comes to him in a dream. This time, Shuri's mother comes to her in the astral dream and tells her not to do this. And just like the same mother sentiment that people made fun of in BVS, Shuri doesn't kill Namor. The exact same way Batman v Superman took place, and people made fun of it when it happened. I thought it was fine. I thought it made total sense that Batman wouldn't kill him after hearing his mother's name, right? Guess what? Shuri doesn't kill Namor because she has a vision of her mother all of a sudden. So that's what happens. And so Namor and Shuri make peace. Shuri tells that we'll make sure Wakanda helps your kingdom. We'll protect you. And so Namor and his people retreat into the ocean. And so yeah, all this takes place. As for the battle itself, besides Shuri and Namor fighting, Wakanda is fighting with the underwater nation at the same time. And the way it takes place is also quite hilarious because Wakanda comes on this huge vessel ship. None of the people are wearing waterproof coats or suits or even oxygen masks. They're just fighting, you know, in confidence that the ship will never crash. And when the ship actually gets bombed and it starts to sink in the ocean, they all start getting captured and killed in the ocean because they can't fight underwater. It makes no sense that Wakanda, with all the technology they have, would take a fight to the waters without having the technology to prevent them from drowning. Like, Wakanda is the stupidest nation by that sense, right? You have all the technology in the world to build yourself suits to fight underwater, but you take on a water nation without those suits and you die. Honestly, it couldn't have been written worse. It could not have been written worse, other than whatever happened in the She-Hulk episode. So yeah. And another funny thing is that if the Namor's kingdom just wanted to protect themselves from the attacks of the Wakandans, all they have to do is dive back underwater and Wakanda would not have been able to follow them because Wakandan people are standing on the ship without suits. So if Namor's kingdom just retreated underwater, Wakanda cannot pursue them and cannot attack them, and they're completely safe. So sure, Namor would have retreated from battle, but they would have been absolutely fine to plan another attack on another day. Um, so I don't know why they didn't just go back in the water, knowing the Wakandans are just on the land. It's so strange and stupid at the same time. So yeah, that's generally the way I see the film. Overall, it's like if you watch it, take it like in a brain date context, it's okay. It's not that bad of a film, but it is for me, like with my standards, I feel that it's just not good enough, and it's nowhere near as good as any of the previous Phase 3, Phase 2 movies that took place. But it's a great conclusion to the destruction and absolute how horrendous Phase 4 has been. And it just adds to the dumpster fire that is already existent. So I think it speaks for itself. For me, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a 3 out of 10. I would like to rate it a 2 out of 10 just because they did not explain a lot of context, especially where all the men in Wakanda went. Like Black Panther, Where Are the Men? Um, would be a good title. But at the same time, it's just the general stupidity of the film that's putting me between a 3 and a 2. Nothing great about CGI, nothing great about the music, nothing great about the story. A lot of emotional scenes to show funerals, one after another. T'Challa's funeral, the mother's funeral, and towards the very end of the film, something even stupider happens. Shuri actually goes to meet Nakia, where she wants to do some final rites to detach from her mother and her brother, so she brings their robes, and apparently burning their robes in fire means you're letting go of them one last time. And just as she does that, Nakia brings her son out and tells Shuri, by the way, this is your nephew, this is T'Challa and my son, and his name is also T'Challa, the next king of Wakanda. And so Shuri is like, I just let go and you dumped this on my head. And so it just looks like Marvel can't take itself seriously ever. Like, would you reveal the son you've been hiding? Like just as the other person's like trying to let go of the past. Like you should have done that long ago, knowing that she is, you know, the sister of what do you call this? T'Challa. Like why wouldn't you let her know that he had a son all along with Nakia? It just didn't make sense. Like even though they wanted him to be raised away from Wakanda and away from the choice of being king, which is also strange. Like why did T'Challa not want? Why would T'Challa not want his son to be king? Is a bit strange for me. Um, yeah, considering he took up the mantle without much question, honestly, and he was a great leader. He was actually a good leader for Wakanda, which is the only reason that they disputed Killmonger winning a fair fight in the trial to become king, right? Is because T'Challa is actually a decent, good leader, and he's a genuine person. And even though Killmonger won by a fair fight, Killmonger is just this colonizer kind of attitude um, that he brings that's just so dangerous to these people. So yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it at a two. But to be fair, considering the effort they put in for Namor, I think a three. If they showed me the real Namor, maybe I would have given a little more. But I think this is what it is for me. This is one of the worst movies of the year so far. I think, especially Marvel movie. I think it's the worst. This is the worst Marvel movie this year. Is that fair to say? It's Doctor Strange. What other films were there? Marvel films this year that was good. Black Widow was last year, right? So there's Doctor Strange. There was Thor. Oh no, no, Thor is the worst. Thor is hands down the worst movie. This is not so bad. So three is okay. This is not so bad. Thor is at least a one or a two. Doctor Strange is probably a four. But yeah, this is not that. This is not as bad as whatever Thor was. Thor was trash, absolute trash. So yeah, other than that, as for the choice of actors and whatever, I'm only really it feels really strange that all of a sudden all the men are missing in the film and a lot of women show up too. Like it's great that you want to show that Dora Milaje is made out of women. That's fantastic. I completely agree with that. You want to show that they're really strong women. Although they show them pretty close to superhuman strength in this, I think it's fine. You just want to show that there's some enhanced women who have been raised like Spartans since they were born or whatever to become combatants. Absolutely believable. But there were a lot of men who stood together when Wakanda fought Thanos, and they're all missing in this film. All of a sudden, yeah, they're not even there to help the Queen when she's being attacked by Namor. So it's very strange. And why the Africans have an American accent when pronouncing him as Namor is just beyond me. So yeah, while my questions may seem a little bit too much for you guys. I do know some of you who do appreciate me pointing out all of these little things, integrated things that I see. Sorry if I'm a little bit all over the place. I didn't want to structure this too much just because I felt the plot itself was a little bit all over the place and I just wanted to get my frustration out of the way before I lead the actual story itself and then the little details through it. Um, so yeah, that's it for me for this one. I hope you guys never watch this film, and if you do, my condolences. Please watch the first film to wash your eyes and your soul. And even better yet, go and watch go and watch Civil War because that is actually, I feel, the best version of Black Panther that we have seen on screen so far, and we may never see that again. So yeah, that's it for me. See you guys in the next one. Take care, guys.